Hello, I'm Pip Courtney. Welcome to Landline. Lamb producers are enjoying what analysts have described as a white-hot market. Australian lamb has never been dearer, with record prices of over $350 a sheep. But as Tim Lee discovered, that's taking lamb off the table for many Australian families.
It's market day at Wagga Wagga in southern New South Wales. In the pre-dawn bustle, the last of 44,000 sheep and lambs are penned up, ready for auction.
We've yarded over 50,000 for the past 6 weeks here, which is quite uncommon for this time of the year.
Lamb is currently the hottest ticket in agriculture.
The lamb market's never been as hot, and neither is the mutton market. We're seeing levels we haven't seen before and, trying to deal with it.
After a 2 a.m. start and a 3-hour trip from Goulburn, the Mooney family is back at Wagga with a semi-load of lambs and high hopes. Can they match, perhaps even better, the national record for prime lamb set a few weeks ago? And you've got another truckload of money today. How are you hoping these ones will go?
Well, it's a truckload of money. Yeah, I think these lambs will sell well. We've got 3 drafts here today. We got the top draft, which was the same as what we broke the record with.
We've seen big runs of lambs out of Orange. We've had lambs out of Condo today, and we're getting lambs from Broken Hill. So it is attracting the competition that's at all these sets of sale yards around New South Wales and Victoria is generated a lot of interest, and we're getting a lot of stock sent to us from a long way away.
The Wagga Wagga sale yards are the largest sheep and lamb market in Australia. And in recent weeks here, prime lambs have been fetching extraordinary prices and smashing records. On June 24, this pen of Dorset Suffolk Cross lambs, just under a year old, propelled prices into a new stratosphere.
3, 4, 55, 55 and over they go. 350, 420, done, Fletcher.
Yeah, it was a great thrill. I think I broke it about 5 years ago and I had it for 2 days, so hopefully it lasts a bit longer at 350, 420, but who knows.
To get an Australian record any time, it's great. Yeah, first time and I won't forget it. Look, we've been wanting to have a go at the record for quite a few years, but things just didn't line up for us to do it. This year they did line up for us, and we got a big kick out of it. Yeah.
There's people specifically feeding lambs just to have a go at that record, which is great. Ultimately, it's the average that puts the money in the bank, and I think people are pretty excited about the average that they've been receiving if they've been able to retain lambs through the end of this dry period.
The record-breaking lambs weighed between 95 and 105 kilos, with a slaughter weight of 51 kilos. The lambs that the Moonies have brought today are even heavier.
378, 75, 70 to go. I got how much? I got 54, 4. I got to get 54. I mean 354, bid now to bid 54, to bid 4 and out. Hit 354 and I sell them. 354 to ALC too.
The $354 price today is a mere 20 cents a head short of matching the record set 2 weeks earlier.
Yeah, not quite, but still lamb prices are phenomenal and it was a good result today. Can't complain at all.
Their hard work in carefully lot feeding their lambs has paid off handsomely. Pretty encouraging, Will, just to see that. Amazing.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, it gives you a lot of confidence in that going in and doing something right, I suppose. So, yeah, no, it's good.
Like the Moonies' other lambs, these went to Fletcher International at Dubbo, where they'll be processed and exported.
5 years ago, you would have never found a lamb that weighed 100 kilos, but that's what these blokes have learnt to do. They've learnt to feed them well. They've got the genetics right. They've got the nutrition right. And with the drought going on, they had to lock them up early, so they just got these enormous big lambs, and fortunately they are getting rewarded for all their efforts.
Lamb prices always peak in winter because of scarcer supply, but this year's sustained surge has surprised everyone.
If you were to compare this year to last year, 2018, we reached $300 somewhere in that first week in August before it took off. Well, we're already at the record of $350-something.
$260.
It's at the absolute heights it's ever been. The record was getting broken every, couple of days there.
You're going to get out at $300 quick. Hurry, they're going to go on the
Unlike most of the nation's sheep belt, southern New South Wales is enjoying a reasonable season.
The volume of lambs that we have here is purely reflective of the lamb growing ability and the safer seasons that we enjoy, as well as that as the access to the grain they grow.
At Pulltop, south of Wagga Wagga, the Anderson family produces wool, grows crops and raises lambs, which are purely pasture-fed. For profit, lambs are their star performers.
We're having a good season at this stage, but we normally aim to be selling lambs this time of year. That's a normal thing for us. We're big on grazing crops and we sort of aim for this market.
Like many producers, the Andersons are growing larger animals. These 11-month-old lambs weigh about 70 kilos.
Well, the market's been pretty hot, so last week we got $315. That's the best price we've ever had, so pretty all smiles. Yeah.
So today, with the assistance of stock agent Isaac Hill working the drafting race, they're selecting and consigning their next heaviest lambs, about 120, to take advantage of the strong market at Wagga. The equation is simple. Stock is scarce, so demand is surging.
I think widespread drought has a lot to do with the availability of prime livestock, whether it be mutton and or lambs. Like the confidence is there through everybody. The people that have been in a dry time and the way the grain prices have been, it's still equitable to feed either the mutton or the lambs up to a certain weight and get a reward for that effort.
Obviously, the main driving factor is the national flocks decreased substantially over the past 20 years. Then we've had this dreadful drought for the past 3 years, and all of a sudden we're coming into the winter market where it traditionally gets dearer anyway. So you've got those three big factors all happening, and it's supply and demand, I would say.
It's extraordinary, the lamb job, and coupled with the mutton job, it's very good to be in the sheep meat industry at the moment.
Unless, of course, you're a processor. For export abattoirs, it's a very mixed picture. The weakening Australian currency of recent months has helped exports. So too, the seemingly insatiable appetite for Australian lamb here and abroad. But such high prices means margins are very tight.
Handle about them, right? For them, they're 194.
Livestock buyer Mick Fitzsimmons is from Junee Prime Lambs, one of Australia's leading lamb processors.
Possibly 80 to 85% of what we're killing out there goes overseas, and maybe 15 to 20% onto the domestic market at present. But our domestic business is getting smaller and smaller, and the export side of the business has been growing steadily.
The United States is Australia's most valuable market, last year worth $824 million. Like lamb, mutton has also hit historical highs this year. 95% of mutton is exported, and China takes the lion's share. Its growing appetite for mutton means it's on track this year to account for 35% of exports. And other new markets are emerging.
Primarily more of the Asian countries, Singapore, Korea, all those countries, and it's because of the work that our guys are putting in, to find those markets and, to push our product.
Last year, Australian lamb and mutton exports were worth $3.6 billion. This year, it's tipped to be around $3.9 billion. That's more than dairy and more than horticulture, and almost a six-fold increase in 20 years. Few agricultural commodities have achieved such stellar success. Here and in New Zealand, lamb prices have risen alongside consumption. Aussies and Kiwis enjoy 70% of the global sheep meat trade. But the current prices are putting the brakes on domestic sales.
You can price yourself out of the market, which is what's happening. Beef, pork, chicken are all more financially viable for the householder at the moment than lamb. The export demand is there, but we've got to be careful that we don't push the price to a level where we can't compete with the other proteins on the market.
Tallangatta in northeastern Victoria sits on the banks of the Hume Dam. This massive water storage is feeling the impact of drought. It's only a quarter full. The local butcher is also feeling the effects of the big dry and its impact on meat prices.
The local butchers just aren't selling lamb. We know butcher shops that are selling legs of lamb for $19 a kilo. So, you know, when your Sunday roast is $50 or $60, not many people are going to do that.
Yep, good eye, nice bit of fat cover, good body of beef.
Like we're paying $30, $40 a head more than we've ever had to pay before. Yeah, by far the highest prices.
Fortunately for Greg Kavanagh, he saw this coming. The family farm has been their business's saving grace.
We buy lambs and finish them off on pellets and silage, and we can cut out the middleman there if you like. We've stocked up on lambs anticipating that the price was going to get high.
Every year, the arrival of spring sees more grass, a flush of lambs onto the market, and a corresponding drop in lamb prices.
When they're high, we can't put them up as much as maybe you've got to maintain our margins. So you just do whatever you can to cut costs and ride it out to hopefully in the spring there's some cheaper lambs around.
However, given recent events, when it comes to predicting price, most people are a little nervous.
I'm reluctant to say it's probably going to stay quite that high, but you know, there's not a lot of numbers around, and they've got all these overseas markets that seem insatiable at the moment, like they just cannot get enough of this Australian lamb. So it certainly looks it looks a bright future for the producers, it really does.
While record prices are enjoyed by lamb producers, in some parts of the country, the drought continues to take a heavy emotional and financial toll. In the far west of New South Wales, an increasing number of graziers are selling up as the mental strain becomes too much.
Gun Park Station, 150 kilometres north of Broken Hill, is at the centre of Wes Herring's family history. And he always imagined it would be part of his future. But this week, he put his beloved property up for sale.
The hardest day's work I've ever done. Well, there's nearly 106 years of history, there's 4 generations, you know, it's from when I was, you know, all I ever wanted to do was to own this property.
There's been no useful rain on Gun Park Station for 2 years, and the Herrings have spent $1,000 a day since November 2017 feeding their cattle and sheep.
It's nature, and as beautiful as it can be horrible, and at the moment it is god-awful horrible. I mean, you might as well be trying to raise sheep in the middle of the Sahara Desert. I've given it as much as I can mentally, emotionally, financially. It is, and, you know, I don't think I've failed. I haven't surrendered to the drought. I've just made a wiser choice, I think.
But Wes came very close to not making that choice when the endless days of losing water, money and livestock took him to the brink.
I've held a gun to my head, and I've been there, and I have no intention of going back.
The husband and father of one has turned to poetry to help him get through.
Of ending it all to stop the pain, she gently tells him it's nobody's gain. The pain you'll just pass to thee kids and I, that baton you'll hand to me if you die.
He's also reached out to a fellow grazier and friend who's using his own experience of depression to help others.
I think you need to have a lived experience. They will then understand that you know what they're talking about. And, you know, I had that opportunity. I got cared for, looked after, and I'd like to give that back to the community the best way I possibly can.
There's nothing wrong with saying, give us a hand. it doesn't make you less a man. In fact, I think it makes you more of a man to be able to admit that it is past you, and that you can make it with a little bit of help.
Wes and Kate are parents to 8-year-old Angus, who has non-verbal autism.
It's extremely tough being in this situation with any children, but to have one with special needs as well on top of that is massive.
And they're not the only ones who have decided to sell up.
And we've sold a property just recently that had been in the family for 103 years. And yeah, we're starting to see a couple more come on the market. So traditionally very uncommon, but circumstances have seen that change.
While recent rainfall across far west New South Wales has filled up some dams and water tanks, it's not enough to end the drought. And many families are in a similar position to the Herrings, faced with the tough decision to stay and weather the drought, or sell up, leave and try their luck somewhere else.
I've done the best that I can. I'm not beat. I'm just going to start the game somewhere else.
Being left in the dark is not usually a good thing, but the lack of light pollution in remote Western Australia means it's just the opposite. A huge telescope is to be built to study the stunning night sky, which is already attracting star-struck astronomers, including Landline's very own Sean Murphy.
In a remote part of the northern wheat belt in Western Australia, something remarkable is happening after dark. It's nothing new though, it's been happening since the dawn of time. But the region's stunning night sky has been newly discovered by astronomers, photographers and stargazers.
Perth is the most isolated capital city in the world, and this is a really key advantage that we have. So that means most of our population is concentrated in just one small spot of our state, and it leaves this vast area with a low population and hundreds of welcoming small country towns with low levels of light pollution, which makes it better for stargazing, of course, and places where you can see the beautiful Milky Way as it should be seen.
Better known for its amazing wildflower season, Carnamah is one of 9 towns in the Midwest that have formed an astrotourism trail. The local Shire Council has even introduced a lighting policy so that the introduction of LED street lighting won't affect its night sky.
An LED is obviously a lot brighter, and there's potential that can make more of a night glow and interfere with stargazing. So the new policy is to make sure that any new infrastructure is shielded in a way that we're still giving full lux on the ground and safety for people in the community, but protecting the dark night sky, so not interfering with astrophotography or stargazing.
Carnamah's population of just 800 has embraced astrotourism through the North Midlands project, which promotes well-being in the Midwest through the arts, heritage and culture.
So we've been working with astrotourism for almost a year now, looking at starting a local astronomy club, and also we've partnered with them for a few events, so some community events where we might have run activities that were totally different, but then we've tied in astrotourism as an element.
From a mental health point of view, in a place like the Midwest, how important is it that you've got events, you've got activities?
Really important. A lot of the time social isolation in rural communities can be a lot higher, so we've been really active about putting on lots of exhibitions and events right through the North Midlands in this part of the Midwest, just to reduce social isolation, give people more opportunities to do things that they're interested in.
Here's the eyepiece that you look through and the finder scope that helps you find things in the night sky. Can you see in there? There's a nice shiny mirror at the very bottom.
Carol Redford, otherwise known as Galaxy Girl, is the founder of Astrotourism WA. It's helping to diversify the economic base of small towns, but it also has a big emphasis on education.
There's nothing like showing someone Saturn through a telescope for the first time, and it's that moment that can change someone's direction in life. I mean, I'm a bit like that too. I'm sort of an accidental stargazer. Kind of fell into it with the opportunity to own and operate an observatory in Gingin, just north of Perth, and that was an amazing experience.
Astrotourism's stargazing events are attracting enthusiasts from all over the state.
Wow, that's a really impressive looking unit there, Roy. What is it?
It's a Schmidt-Cassegrain telescope. So it's a folded design, which means if this was like your old-fashioned telescopes, it would be the equivalent of 4 metres long. So at the very front is a glass plate, lens, mirror in the back, another mirror in the front, and then it comes out through the bottom tube.
How much would a unit like that cost?
The tube itself costs about $6,000–7,000.
And while there's an impressive array of telescopes on show, astrotourism is not just for the professionals.
See, there's that big dark patch there, just next to the Southern Cross there. Well, that's the head of the emu, and you can sort of see a bit of a beak coming off here and the roundness of the head. Look, if you haven't got a telescope, or you might have a pair of binoculars, or even your favourite chair, or a nice picnic rug, you know, and these are the places that we're creating, places where people can come either with their technology or with their favourite chair or picnic rug and lie under the Milky Way and see it as it's truly supposed to be experienced, with away from artificial light pollution. You know, so you can really get that darkness and see that thick band of stars in the Milky Way galaxy.
The low light is a big attraction for astrophotographers such as Michael Goh. His work is known internationally and has been used to promote WA tourism. But he says anyone can shoot the stars.
But you don't need to have a full-frame DSLR. You can have an entry-level camera, anything that basically shoots on manual settings. In fact, something I'm planning on doing later tonight is using my iPhone and just doing a really long exposure and seeing if I can capture the stars with that.
And so how satisfying is it when you capture a really good image?
It's quite rewarding. I suppose it's the way I take a lot of images with the panoramas. It might be a little bit like the old film days where you don't really know wholly what you've got till you've actually finally exposed it and put it together. In terms of what I've learned along the journey is to push my boundaries. Just like the camera, you're just continually pushing it, experimenting, trying things out which are new. And also, especially under the night sky, it's very rewarding, I suppose, the humility being under the stars, realising that whatever our problems are down here, the universe doesn't care. So it's actually very rewarding and humbling that way.
While astrotourism is an emerging industry, stargazing is a billion-dollar business in WA. Next year, construction begins on the world's biggest radio telescope, the Square Kilometre Array, or SKA.
The SKA will detect radio waves to reveal the hidden universe and answer fundamental questions about the cosmos.
There's 12 countries involved in building this big, it's $1 billion worth of telescope. It'll be the world's largest radio telescope when it's finished. And it's going to be in the Midwest of West Australia. We'll start construction next year. But in the Midwest, there are other facilities as well. There's NASA has got facilities there, the European Space Agency's got facilities there. So everybody likes the isolation of the Midwest because it's so radio quiet, but also in the Southern Hemisphere is a great place to look at the universe.
Professor Peter Quinn is the Executive Director of the International Centre for Radio Astronomy Research. He says the SKA's work on the origins of the universe will bring new opportunities to WA at the cutting edge of scientific discovery.
We're going to make the most of it. It's a great time to do astronomy in Western Australia, particularly for the students who are studying here at university right now. They've got a career path into this. And these telescopes are not just about astronomy, they're also about technology. So some of the technological problems we have to solve to build this telescope is going to breed a whole generation of data scientists and engineers as well.
But even professionals such as astronomy researcher Robin Cook say there's nothing like getting out under the night sky to really appreciate the stars.
Most of the time I'm behind my computer screen, looking at pictures of galaxies that I've taken months ago. But it's really special when I get to come out here, and it's only once a month, twice a month occasionally, and I get out here and it kind of puts perspective to what I'm looking at. You get to see everything in its grand gesture, and I think that's really important for me as a researcher to remind myself what I'm looking at.
Hang on to here and looking into the eyepiece. So what you're looking for is lots of dust and gas in there. Can you see some?
A new generation of scientists might be inspired by the wonders in their own backyard. But the real potential for WA's emerging astrotourism may be to attract visitors who never get to see the Milky Way at home.
80% of the world's population live under some sort of sky glow. And that means there are billions of people on this planet who cannot see the beautiful Milky Way, that beautiful band of stars that stretch across our horizons. WA is sitting pretty. We've got this amazing landscape, this amazing low light pollution, that if we do keep it dark, we will have this world-class tourism asset for decades, maybe even centuries to come.
And that's the show. We hope you enjoyed it. Don't forget, you can catch up anytime on iView. Until next week, bye for now.